Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the vlog, and I hope you guys are all having a fantastic day today. I wanted to make this video addressing a few myths about Corvettes that are just simply not true. Now, chances are, if you own a Corvette already, or if you're looking to buy one sometime in the near future, you've more than likely heard a few of these myths. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. Number one on the list, guys, is that only old people drive Corvettes, and that couldn't be any farther from the truth at all. I bought my first Corvette when I was like 23 or maybe 24 years old. And it's not because I make a ton of money, and I don't have rich family members that buy me everything, or whatever stereotype there is about a young guy driving a Corvette. It's because there's so many of them out there on the road because they've been out for almost 70 years. And with that, you have 8 generations and so many different trim levels to pick from that it's kind of hard not to find a Corvette within your budget. I remember when I was first looking for mine, I wanted to buy a C7. But I was only willing to spend around $35,000, so that could get me in a higher mileage C7 base or a C6 Z06, and that's what I chose, was a C6Z. Not to mention, when I was younger, I had a picture of a C6 Z06 on my wall, so I'm literally driving my childhood dream car, which is awesome. Now, with that being said, guys, the people that have grew up with Corvettes more than likely saw them on the road when they were younger. Those are the same people that go out and buy that brand new car. And granted, yeah, they're spending a lot of money on it, but you know what? It's GM's flagship vehicle, so of course you're going to spend a decent amount of cash. I mean, for what it's worth, you can get a C5 for anywhere between like $8,000 and $15,000, depending on what you're looking for. C4s are almost free today, and if you want to get a decent C6, they start around at $18,000 mark and go all the way up to like 55 grand, but that's for the ZR1. C7s are also coming down in price because a new mid-engine Corvette is out. I remember going to a car show recently, guys, and there was this guy there. He bought a brand new Honda Type R, and it was like $45,000, and it blew my mind because this guy was also a big Corvette fan. And I asked him, I'm like, why didn't you just get a Corvette? He told me that he couldn't afford one. And I asked him if he'd done any research on them, and he kind of blew it off because he just assumed that they were all a ton of money. When in all reality, if he would have just looked a little bit harder, he would have realized that they were absolutely within his budget. The second thing on my list, guys, is that your insurance must be through the roof. That's something I hear all the time while driving this car, if I've stopped at a gas station or just talking to people about the car. And what they do is they see a younger guy in his 20s, they see a high-performance sports car, and typically they don't go hand in hand. However, my insurance, believe it or not, is extremely cheap, and I'll disclose that with you in a few seconds. Now, originally when I was looking at a Corvette, I was also looking at GTRs. And one of the things that steered me to the Corvette over the GTR was the insurance cost. For me, I don't have any points on my license. I have a really good driving record. I was looking at right around like $300 and something a month to insure a GTR. But with my house, my other vehicles on my policy, I pay $547 a year to cover this full coverage. It got to the point where I got into an argument with somebody and they didn't believe that that was my insurance cost. So I literally had to take a screenshot and send it to them because they couldn't believe how cheap it was. Now, I'm not saying that your insurance is going to be that cheap. I do have a few things that tie into why it is, but you could absolutely be surprised on how cheap the insurance is. Just go ahead and look for yourself. Number 3 is gas mileage. And this is another thing that's kind of funny to me because it varies on what you have done to the car, how you drive, where you are, the type of gas you put in, etc., right? For me, my gas mileage sucks, but I drive like I'm the hottest thing on 4 wheels. I have 600 horsepower and you might as well use it. With that being said, if I'm on the highway going on a trip somewhere, I can put my car in 6th gear, log on the highway, and get like 27 miles a gallon. Even me beating on my Corvette and driving it like how a sports car should be driven, I still get better gas mileage in this than I do my Jeep Wrangler. Which isn't really saying much because a Wrangler is essentially like a sheet of plywood going down the road. It's not very aerodynamic. But all in all, the Corvette really doesn't get that bad a gas mileage. The 4th thing on my list, guys, is overall comfort. I can't tell you how many times I've heard from people asking me how I drive this Corvette all the time. It's not very comfortable, they've sat in one, whatever the case is, they just think that they're terribly uncomfortable cars. And I completely disagree. Now, don't get me wrong, would I want to drive all the way to California in this across the country? Absolutely not. There's about 100 different vehicles I can think of that I would rather be in. However, I really don't think they're all that uncomfortable. Now, from my generation and older, so the C6, C5 and older, it's no secret that GM really didn't put that much thought into the interior. It's a little outdated. It just wasn't a very comfortable ride. But I can think of plenty other vehicles that are way more uncomfortable than a Corvette. A lot of people complain about the seats that came in my generation, and I swapped mine out. These Recaros are probably one of the best seats that I've ever sat in. It's not like I upgraded my seats because because the stock ones were that uncomfortable. It's just my buddy upgraded his seats to the Carvaggios and had these left over. So naturally, when you get a smoking deal on something, you take it. Now, I've owned a lot of other vehicles. I've had a 350Z, a 370Z, an Evo, and quite a few other cars. And with me being 6 feet tall, I can tell you that the Corvette itself is probably one of the more comfortable vehicles I've sat in. There's plenty of leg room. It's also not that bad as far as practicality goes because the hatch has 22 cubic feet of storage that you can use. And finally, guys, number 5 is overall reliability. For whatever reason, people associate sports cars with being unreliable. Now, I've owned this car for about 3 or 4 years now, and I've had zero issues with it at all. Of course, it's an LS7, you're going to have the valve guide issue, and if you're looking at a Z06 like mine, that's something you should absolutely address. But I mean, other than that, when you do the heads anyway, there's no other issues with it. LS engines are the most swamped engine out there, and I get they're not partial to only Corvettes, but GM did a phenomenal job making this car. You gotta think, you see a Corvette every single day, and if you really pay attention, you'll probably realize that you see about 20 or 30 Corvettes a day. If they were really that unreliable, you probably wouldn't see them all over the road. And like I said earlier, they've been around for almost 70 years. But over that 70-year span, even the oldest ones are still on the road just fine. But anyway, guys, that's going to do it for this video. If you enjoyed it, please give it a big thumbs up. Take care, and I'll see you next time.